Now let's learn about Next.js. So what is Next.js? Next.js is a React framework for the web. So along with front-end React, you also get back-end functionality. So it's a full stack framework. So React is just for front-end. With Next.js, you can build complete full stack application. So if you click on get started, let's see what it contains. So with Next.js, you get better SEO support. So by default, React is not SEO friendly. So if you see, I have this simple React application, and if I open this in new tab, you can see we are just displaying inside the app component, welcome to the world of React. Now, if I inspect this text, you can see inside div with ID root, we are displaying this h1. But if I right click here and see the page source, you can see there is nothing inside the div with ID root. So it's entirely empty. So you don't have the content, HTML content initially itself. So when crawler or Google tries to search for your application, it does not get the initial content. So it does not know what your application is about. So SEO support is not good in React because behind the scene, this JavaScript is injected inside this particular div. So whatever content you see or render, that is dynamically inserted inside this div with ID root. So initially when your application is loaded, you don't have any content available. So what is this application about? You don't get any idea. So that's why React is not SEO friendly. But with Next.js, you get SEO support for each web page. You can define the title and description, all the metadata also. So this is good for SEO. With this Next.js, you also get routing support. So you don't need to install external library like React Router DOM. So you automatically get file-based routing support. It also provides data fetching, so better management of data fetching from server component as well as client component. So in the rendering, if you see, there are two things: server component and client component. So by default, every component that we create in Next.js is the server component. And if you want some interactivity, then you can create that as a client component. We'll see how to do that. So here in the documentation, so whenever you go click on get started, you will see there is a drop down using app router and using pages router. So if you see the current version of Next.js, so if I say npm next, you can see the current version at the time of recording this video. It's 15.0.3. So this is the latest version. So starting with version 13 of Next.js, it's using app router. So the entire API is changed. So if you are using older version of Next.js, which is 12 or lower, you need to use the pages router. But for the newer application, you should always use app router, which is the better functionality and it has better API. So this is the future. So for future application, you should always use app router. So it also provides caching functionality. So your application will be loaded faster. So you don't see blank screen while the data is getting loaded. It has also better optimization. So you don't load the entire application code initially itself. Only that part which is loaded at the what you are seeing on the screen, that is only loaded. So it's like a lazy loading. You automatically get support for that. So there are a lot of benefits of using Next.js. So let's see how to create a Next.js application. So to create a Next.js application, you can execute npx create next app. So just like create React app, we have create next app, and you can specify add latest. So it will always use the latest one. So on the Next.js npm package, what is the latest version? 15.0.3. So it will always use latest version, what will be released later also. So if later there is version 16 and you say add latest, it will use the 16th one. But I will not specify latest. So I will specify the exact version 15.0.3. So later also, if there is newer versions released and there is some breaking change, whatever code we are seeing in this course, it will correctly work. So it will not break for future version also. So you will be able to easily follow this course in the future, no matter when you are watching this course, like after 3 months, 1 year, 2 year, all the code in this particular course will work as expected. So now just press enter. Now it will ask you what is the project name. So I can say next 15 app. Do you want to use TypeScript? I don't want to complicate, so I will say no. You can also say yes if you want. Would you like to use ESLint? Yes. Tailwind CSS? Yes. Would you like to use SRC directly? So pages directory, so whatever we have seen the pages router, so this was using src directory. So if you want, you can use src directory for this app router also, or you can say yes or no depending on your requirement. So it does not matter. So I will say no. Would you like to use app router? Yes, this is very important. You should always say yes for the app router. Otherwise, you will get the older version, older API. Would you like to use Turbo Pack? So this is for better development. So it will be faster development. So I will say yes. You can also say no. No, it does not matter. So would you like to customize the import allies? No. And now it will try to create the application. Now the project is created. I can feed into this folder next 15 app, and I will open this in VS Code. So you can see the project is created. Let's understand the folder and file structure. So you can see Tailwind configuration. So as we are using Tailwind, you get this configuration. There is also Next.js configuration. So if you are adding some extra configuration for images or any other thing, you can mention that in here. We also have public directory where you can put public files like images. Here app directory. So this is very important. So all the source code of your application, Next.js application, always goes inside this app folder. So this is the main folder where you write your entire application code. So inside this we have this page.js. So as I said, every component that we create is by default server component inside the app directory. So inside the app folder, you create any file that is by default server component. So it renders on the server side. So what is mean by server component? So it renders first on the server side, and that generated HTML content is sent to the client. So there is no JavaScript added. So it's faster for loading the application. So your initial loading will be faster. So there will not be extra JavaScript added. So it will be faster for initial load. So most of the time you will be always using server component, and anytime you feel that you need to add some click handler or you need to use some effect, in that case you can make that component as a client component. So this component will always be rendered first on the server and then that is hydrated. So hydrated means you add some extra event handler, extra JavaScript is added, and then that is sent to the client. So that is known as hydration. So you will see this term hydration always when you are working with Next.js. So you will get different types of hydration here. So whenever your application or component is rendered, it's always rendered first on the server side and then it's hydrated on the client side, like all JavaScript is added, which is click handler and all other things are added. So it's hydrated on the client. So this is the app folder and page.js. So the naming is very important. So if you see the documentation, there is a project structure. So folder and file name convention. So there is layout.js. If you see here, layout.js, page.js. So it can be JS, JSX, CSX, depending on if you are using TypeScript or not. So whatever route you create, whatever page you create, it has to be called as page.js. So let me run this application so you will better understand. So if you go to package.json, how to run, there is a dev script here. So just execute npm run dev and it will start your application in development. Now let's open this, open the console also so we can see if there is any warning or error. So you can see the page is loaded. We are getting this error hydration failed. And if I close this on the console also, you can see there is some error. So this is new application we created and we are getting this error not because there is some actual error. So when you are using Chrome here, you are also using some external extension. So that extension might interfere with your application. So you get this error. So instead of running this Next.js application directly, you can open that in incognito mode. So where your all the extensions are disabled. So now if I refresh, you can see there is no error. In the console also, there is no error. So just because there is some error does not mean your application has error. So if you are using some extension that are interfering or adding some external JavaScript, so in that case, you will get these type of errors. So always use the incognito mode or disable the extension. So you can see this is the default content that is generated by Next.js. So let me close this and go to the app. page.js. So if you see the content that is displayed, get started with editing. If I search for this, you can see it's here. It's inside page.js inside the app folder. So when you access localhost 3000, this is the page.js that gets rendered. And you can, I don't want to see this, so let me change it to welcome to Next.js world. I'll save this. And if I check, you can see welcome to Next.js world is displayed. So as I said, we get support for the routing, inbuilt routing, file-based routing if you are using Next.js. So inside the app folder, I can create a dashboard folder, and inside it, I can create page.js or JSX. So usually if you are writing JSX, you should name it JSX extension. So I can create some boilerplate code. Let's say I can say dashboard. Now I can say this. So if you want to create that code quickly, you can install the ES7 plus snippets extension. So using this extension, you can quickly generate the code. So you can just type RFC. It will create a functional component with export syntax. You can also say RAFCE, which will create a arrow function with export syntax. So RFC you can create. So there are different versions, different type of functions you can create if you are using this extension. So in this, you need to remember that the function that you are creating, so I will use RFCE. So whatever function that you are creating, I can name it dashboard. That has to be a default export. So you cannot create any named export inside this particular page.js. So if I try to access dashboard, you can see you are getting error. The export default export is not a React component. So whenever you create component inside page.jsx, it has to be a default export. That is very important. Export default dashboard. Now if I save and if I refresh this, you can see we correctly get the dashboard. So you don't need to use external library like React router. You just execute slash dashboard. So whenever I access slash dashboard, content of page.jsx gets displayed. Similarly, I can create inside app, I can create profile folder where I can create page.jsx, and I will create again. You can also use arrow function. So I can say profile. Here I can say profile page. So let me make it H1. So it will be better. Here also I will change it to H1. Now we have this profile inside the app folder. So inside app, we have profile folder which has page.js. So I can access directly slash profile and it will display content from profile. So instead of dashboard, I will say profile. You can see you get content from profile. So by just creating folder and inside that you have to create page.jsx. So name is very important. If you create something like pages.jsx and if you try to access that, it will not work. You will not get that page. This page could not be. So the naming is important. So Next.js checks for that specific file name. So when you create page.jsx, it will consider as a route. So dashboard, this is a route where you have that page.jsx. It's also called as segment. So in Next.js, you can also call it as a segment or route. So it's a different terminology. So when you say segment, it's same as route. So we have dashboard route, profile route, and you can also create about route. Let's say about slash page.jsx. So this is shortcut. Just select the file icon and type it like this about slash page.jsx. So it will create about folder as well as page.jsx inside it. So I will call it about, and this will be h1. We call it about page. Now I can access this about, and it will display about. So you can see you get file-based routing support. You don't need to install any. And you can see there is also layout.js. So what is this layout.js? So in the documentation, you can see there is page layout loading. So you can also create loading.js. So whenever you want to display some loading, in that case you create loading.js. If you want to implement some not found page, you can create not-found.js and error.js. So all these files you can create route.js. If you are adding some server side route code, then you can create route.js. So React Next.js checks for these specific file names. If you create with that name, it will work like whatever you are using. So now this layout.js is where your page content is wrapped. So whatever common code you have, you can put this in layout.js. So if I close everything and I collapse it, inside app we have page.js and layout.js. So this layout.js wraps your page.js. So if you see root layout component, so for component you can name anything, but you can see here it's accepting children prompt. So whatever content you are rendering inside the page.js, that gets rendered as a children. So by default, Next.js does that job. You don't have to call this root layout component. Whenever you create layout.js and render the children, page.js content will be rendered. So whatever common code you have, let's say inside app, I will create components folder. If you can also create this outside app if you are using src directory. So initially while creating application we chose not to create src directory. So if you are creating src directory, you can create this components folder outside app but inside the src. So now inside here, let's say I create header dot jsx, which is our main header. So let's say I will create an order list li anchor tag. So let's say home href equal to slash. Why this closing is not coming? Okay, auto rename tag. So you can use this auto rename tag. So it will automatically rename the beginning and end. So let me add one more here. So we have different routes. We have dashboard profile. So it's a dashboard. It will go to slash dashboard. Create profile. It will go to slash profile. And we also have about. So now this is the header component that we can use inside the layout. So before the children, I can render that header component. So let me import from components header. So now if I check any of the page, let's say about, and if I refresh, you can see home, dashboard, profile, about is this. So by default, we are using Tailwind CSS. So it strips out all the CSS styling. So you don't see like these are links. So we can style this header component. So let's add some classes, flex, let's say justify center, item center. So it will be in the center. You can see, let's add some gap between them, gap 4. And let's also add some underline and margin Y, let's say 4. So it will be displayed in the top. You can see now when I click on home, you go to the home page. When I go to dashboard, you see the dashboard page. This is profile page and this is about page. So now one thing you notice is when I click on this, there is entire page refresh. You can see this is a page refresh is happening. So what will happen? So whenever your page is refreshed, and if in React, if you are using some state, that state will get reset. Whenever page gets refreshed, you lose all the information of state if you are using in any of the component. So that's why you should use the routing. So if you are using React Router DOM, we use the link component. We don't use anchor tag. So if your page is refreshed, you lose all the state information. So you should not use anchor tag. Instead, Next.js provides a link component, next slash link. You can see next slash link. You can import that and just use it. So instead of anchor tag, you should use link tag. So it's finally converted to anchor tag, but Next.js behind the scenes manipulate that. So you don't see the full page refresh. So if I inspect this anchor tag right now, you can see home. It's still anchor tag. So let me refresh. You can see it's still anchor tag. There is no change. But now if I click on this, you will not see full page refresh. You can see when I click on profile, you are on profile page, but this does not get refreshed. So your state information is not lost. When you want to link internally in your application, you should use link component from next/link, which is provided by Nextjs. So you don't need to install React Router DOM for that. Just provide HRF. So all these routes we have already created, you automatically get support for that once you use the page.jsx inside any of the component of app folder. Now this is the layout. This will be now common. So you can see whenever I click on this, you always see this header. So this layout, whatever common code you have, this metadata. Metadata is for SEO. So you can change here. I can say Next.js application. You can say Next.js 15 application. And now you can see if I refresh this page, you can see Next.js 15 application title is displayed. And in the head also you will see title Next.js 15 application and whatever meta description. So this is good for SEO. So you can just copy paste this particular object inside any of the server component and it will become your title of that particular page, like SEO content of that particular page. And we have this local font. You can use local or you can also use Google fonts. So you can just say font slash Google and whatever font you want to use, let's say Inter font. Inter, you can just select or you want to use Roboto, you can use that font. So you can use Google fonts also or you can use local font. So I will stick with local font. Revert back. And now, so as I said, whatever common code you want to add for your entire application for that particular route, you can define inside the layout object. Similarly, you can also create footer here and whatever main content will be displayed here. So I can display here footer and here I can say and copy. This is footer. And if I refresh, you can see footer is displayed below. So you can create common content that will be rendered on every page. So now this layout is inside the app. You can also create layout in individual route. So let's say inside dashboard, I want to create that layout. So you can create layout.js. So I will name it dashboard layout. Now I will again accept children. So in layout file, you have to accept children and you need to render. So this will be like a common thing. So let's say this main layout does not use this header. So let me remove this and I will add this inside the dashboard. So you can see we are rendering this dashboard layout. So inside dashboard we have layout. So now you can see there is no header for profile. And if I say go to about, you will not see the header. But if I go to the dashboard component, you will see that header. You can see this header is displayed. So only for the dashboard component and their nested routes, you can use this particular layout. So inside dashboard, I can create any other route also. So I can move all of these routes inside the dashboard. So let's say dashboard profile. Then dashboard, let's keep this, let's move this inside dashboard. So all the routes that we have created, we have moved inside dashboard. So now inside the header, how you will be accessing? I will be accessing like dashboard. This is fine. This will be dashboard slash profile. And this will be slash dashboard slash about. So now all these routes are inside this particular dashboard component. So if I refresh this dashboard will work. Now if I go to home, you can see this is home page, but on home page you don't have that content because this layout is only part of dashboard. So only for the nested routes and direct access to the dashboard, you have this common header. Inside this layout, now we don't have that header, we have removed it. So only if you are on dashboard route, you will be able to access. So if I go to profile, you will see that header. If I go to about, you will see that header. And the route is slash dashboard slash about slash dashboard slash. So this is how you can also create separate layout files. So let's say you have some login page. So inside app, I can create login route and it will have again page.js. So I will create login page. So let's say login page. Now, similarly, inside app, I will also create register page, register slash page.js. I will call it register. So these are outside. So these are not inside the dashboard. So this layout, which has this header, is only inside dashboard. But now this login and register. So it's inside this particular app folder. So let me minimize and expand this app. So now this login and register will use this layout component. So this whatever we have outside. So it does not have header. So if I access slash login now, you will not see header. You can see login page is displayed. Similarly for register, you will see this register. So only if you are logged in or you are on dashboard, you will see that navigation. So this way you can create different routes. You can also create a route group. So inside app, so let's say this login and register, these are all authentication related routes. So I can create a new folder by just wrapping it round brackets. So I can say auth. So now I have a new folder with added round bracket and I can move this login and register inside the app auth folder. So now you can see inside auth we have login and register. But this is a route group. So this is for grouping your content, grouping your folder. Now while accessing slash register, you don't need to add that slash auth slash register. So if I refresh, you can see it still works. I can still access slash login. So you don't have to say slash auth like this, slash auth slash login. So this is page not found. So this is just for convenience. So if you want to group some different routes, in that case, you can use this route group syntax. So you can create route group using just round bracket. So on every page, you can copy this metadata. So we have this metadata inside the layout. So inside every server component, you can copy this. So right now, if I access this slash dashboard, you will see the exact same title inside the head also. You can see exact same title. So but you will not be having same title. If you are on dashboard page, you will be displaying dashboard page, right? So here inside this layout.js, you can copy paste that metadata and here I can say or dashboard page. So whatever dynamic content you want to display, you can display that. So now whenever you are on dashboard page, you can see slash or dashboard is displayed and here also you will see inside the head slash dashboard page. So you can modify this description also generated by, I can say dashboard page content. You can write any meaningful description you want to add. So you can see dashboard pages content is displayed. So this is part of SEO. So crawler or Google knows that what page your is about. So your page is all about dashboard. So I can create profile page. So this is profile page. You can see now it's also displaying Next.js 15 application, which is not correct. So here I can copy this and inside the profile I can add this. So I can say profile page content. So now if I refresh, you can see here we see this profile page. And here also you can see profile. So you can add this metadata by just exporting this constant and it will work like a SEO content. So you can also create layout.jsx inside each of the route. So each folder that you create inside the app folder is known as route or a segment. And inside it, you have to create a page.jsx, then only it will be considered as a route or it's a publicly accessible. You can also create separate folders inside it or a different component. So let's say inside this profile, we are displaying profile. I can also create profile.jsx here inside the profile page and I can display this profile page content. And inside this page, I can use this profile. It will not be H1 now, profile. So we have this exact profile page. I can call it profile page. And here I will import the profile dot slash profile. Now inside this profile, we are displaying, let's make it H1. So now if I access slash profile, so if I access dashboard slash profile, you can see profile page content. So page.jsx is necessary to make it a route and publicly accessible, but you can also create another component that you want to display. So inside this profile or let's say inside dashboard, you can create any other component also. Let's say I want to create some counter component. So I can say inside app counter slash counter.jsx. So I will create a functional component, normal functional component. You can use arrow function also. So let's say I declare a new state here, use state. It will have initial value of 0 and I will name it counter. Say counter and let's see if it gets displayed. So inside app, I have this counter and inside this counter. So if I try to access slash counter, it will not work because this will not work as a route. So to work it as a route, you have to name it page.jsx. Then only it will work. So file name, it has to be JSX, but the component name, you can name it any. Now, if I refresh, you can see you are getting different error. So what this error is saying, it's saying that use state you are importing component that needs usage. So as I said, whenever you create a new component inside the app folder, it's by default server component. And if you want to make it client component, or if you are using some state, or if you are using some effect, use effect hook, in that case, you need to make it a client component. So how to make that client component? You just add a use client directive at the top. In double quote, just as a first line, just say use client. So now this will become a client component and it will run first on the server and then on the client. So I will save this and as soon as I save, we will see counter is displayed. So you don't get any error now. So let's display this counter. I will say counter. Then here I will add a button. I can say increment. And on click, I will increment it. Set counter, counter plus 1. So you can see this increment button is displayed, but it's not displaying like a button. Let's add some styling here. So it will be some spacing and I will add some styling for this border and padding 2. This one. So now this looks like a button. When I increment, you can see the counter is incremented. So whenever you don't use client, that runs on the server, so you get HTML content. But whenever you are using some state or use effect, in that case, you will get this error. So you need to make that component as a client component using use client directive. And now this will first run on the server side. You will get the HTML content. Then JavaScript browser or client hydrates this content. So you will get JavaScript added inside this component. And now you can use state, use effect, local storage, whatever browser related content you want to render, you can display or use inside this component. So this is now, even though it's called as the page.jsx, this will become a route and you can write any JavaScript content here and you can also make it a client component. So, but usually whenever you name it page.jsx, it should be a server component. It should not be client component. So here you make it server only and you create a separate component like this counter.jsx and you can whatever code we have written here you can add that. Let me move everything here. Now this is a counter component that you can render here. So here I will just render that counter and here I will call it counter page. Import this counter. We have this export default counter. I will import this counter from dot slash counter. So now if I refresh, you can see, you see this counter component. So now what is the difference? Now page.jsx, this is a server component. So by default, you should name your page.jsx, keep your page.jsx as a server component and whatever dynamic content you want, add some interactivity, you create that separate component, make that use client and then import that inside the server component. So the advantage is that your page or application will load faster. So you will get this HTML content initially itself, and then you are adding the JavaScript content. So it will be like a faster loading. And whatever content you want to render, backend functionality you want to add, you can add inside this server component. So this is a server component, and whenever you add a use client directive, it becomes a client component.